Welcome to SeriousTech, Engineering the Future, a podcast where we deep dive into the critical role of domain expertise in shaping successful careers in technology. In a rapidly evolving tech landscape, mastering a specific domain is what sets top engineers apart. Join us as we explore how domain tech is transforming industries with a special focus on healthcare, and hear from experts who have built cutting-edge solutions by combining technical brilliance with specialized knowledge. If you're looking to stay ahead in your tech career, this is the place to be. Today, we are joined by Keval Dalal, Assistant Vice President at CitiusTech. With over 12 years of experience in healthcare technology, Keval specializes in managing cross-functional teams and delivering innovative solutions. His deep expertise spans the full software development cycle, with a focus on .NET full-stack development and driving technical excellence in healthcare. Keval's leadership has played a key role in helping CitiusTech integrate advanced technologies like generative AI to drive innovation in healthcare. In this episode, Keval will share insights into the role of generative AI in healthcare transformation, how CitiusTech is leveraging AI to drive innovation and operational efficiencies, the challenges and opportunities that organizations face when adopting GenAI in healthcare, how GenAI will evolve and what this means for healthcare organizations, and what engineers should focus on in order to specialize in this field. Keval, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Laurel. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation today as well. And I think it would be great to maybe start with an overview of what GenAI is looking like. And with CitiusTech's focus on digital innovation, can you give us that overview of GenAI and its rise in healthcare and why it's such a game changer?
Sure. So I'll break that question into two areas. Basically, first, I'll talk a brief about what generative AI is in very layman terms. And the second part is why it is a game changer in terms of health tech space. Correct. So if you look at generative AI or GenAI as everyone calls it, it's one category of artificial intelligence, AI, that uses the generative models to create new content and other forms of data in terms of images, text, etc. Right now, these models learn on underlying patterns and structures from their training data, the one that is supplied to them to train them. And then on base of that, it generates new data, new content based on what prompts we provided to them and gets a meaningful output. Now, while that might sound completely technical, what is important for us to understand is two keywords, key terminologies that reside in that entire introduction of GenAI. One is training data, and second is the underlying data and patterns that on top of which this training data functions upon. Right now, why is it relevant for the health tech space and why it is a game changer and how CitiusTech leverages it? Assume the amount of data that we have collated over years through EHRs, to EMRs, PACS systems, right? The data that collates the healthcare environment ecosystem as such, right? That data, if it is provided for training purpose to the models, and then with the computational powers that these models comes with, if it is possible for us to make some meaningful usage of data in terms of predictive analytics, in terms of generating new type of data which might forecast some trends as such, right? It will be so helpful, correct? And that is where I believe generative AI or Gen AI comes into perspective. We leverage the old data, make some meaningful content out of it in terms of training that models, and then derive some meaningful output to it. That's the entire flow of the generative AI.
You're speaking on meaningful models, meaningful output. I'd like to dig into that a little bit more and see where these impacts are being made in health tech today. Can you tell us some of the real world applications that you're seeing, any success stories that stand out, and maybe give us a sense of how the adoption of Gen AI is shaping up?
Yeah, interesting question. Right now, The real world examples, I think we are already in this generative AI space, right? It's real. That is what is first and foremost thing that we'll have to understand. Many organizations have already started. So there are two categories where I might break it down into. One is the engineering productivity, and second is the business solutions or the business use cases, right? Now, engineering productivity, organizations have leveraged the power of generative AI. It has definitely seen on an average 10 to 15% of productivity gain. So the time that gets saved using these contextual models, right? And the engineers that spend used to earlier spend time on doing a job gets saved by 15 or 20, approximately 15 odd percentage, right? Now that percentage benefit can be leveraged to do much more in terms of the roadmap or the vision that the organizations come with, correct? So that's the engineering productivity gain that I'm looking at. Second, as I said, is the business solutions or the business use cases. Now the training data that we spoke about earlier with the products that the companies have offering for, they can be used to train the models in the areas like automated clinical documentation, which helps the physicians or the specialists to record the time that spends behind they spend behind each patient day in day out. There might be medical imaging in terms of radiology that might be able to leverage the help of generative AI. There are many administrative tasks that go behind the scenes in giving the right care to the patient. That is one of the areas that we might be able to look at. Predictive analytics, training and education, new discoveries in terms of drugs, personalized treatment plans for the patients. It's a platter of areas, business use cases where generative AI can be very helpful, correct? And I'm not sure when we speak about automated clinical documentation, just over HIMSS 2 days back, Microsoft has actually launched their flagship product, right? Which is termed as I would Microsoft Dragon Copilot, which does the actual part of it, right? They claim that it might be able to save 5 minutes per patient that the physician spends. And over a month of time, they claim that it might be able to open approximately 17 odd patient engagements with the physicians. Isn't that great?
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible. And yeah, I mean, across the board for many different roles, from engineers to the physicians themselves, and then ultimately for the patient, I was hearing how much that really just frees up the professional to do what they love, to do what they're there to do, and be an
Absolutely.
engineer, create, innovate, be a physician, care and for their patients, and yeah, every little bit helps, and that all adds up. And however, though, with any emerging technology, there are always its challenges, right? When it comes to Gen AI in the healthcare space, what, according to you, are some of its biggest hurdles?
Right. And that is one of the major areas where people are a bit skeptical about putting their hands into generative AI. Now, healthcare industry as such, right? They have so many regulations sitting on top of it in terms of PHI and PII, right? That is one of the key areas where we have to be very careful about that the data should not be able to reveal the identity of any patient. That's confidential, right? So there are several regulation compliances that fall into perspective, and generative AI has to ensure that they fall true to all of them, correct? So that's one thing. Now, again, security wise, privacy, data privacy wise, because these models are going to get trained on data, data is the core of this entire ecosystem, correct? Now, privacy, handling the privacy of the patients, leakage of the data in terms of security guidelines and compliances, those are the key factors that go into making the Gen AI and the challenges that it comes with. Second is, since the data is going to be a trained data, we have to ensure that there is no bias that comes in with that training data, or else the models might start giving you incorrect, hallucinated data output as an output, which one might not be able to rely on. Correct. So that biasing has to be ensured that the data set that eventually gets built for the training purpose in real environment is not a biased data. Along with it, there are accuracy and reliability concerns. There are, although this systems comes with huge costs behind it, we need to make sure that the costing is giving the right ROI to the investors or the people who are leveraging GenAI behind the scenes of their workflows or their businesses. Correct? Integration with existing systems. So there are a number of challenges, and I'm sure IT industry, health tech industry is definitely ensuring that these are adhered to, ensuring that the challenges are met or possibly handled in the right way, so as to, because it's there to stay, it is there for real, and we want to make sure and make the most of this entire flow that has come along in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, technical challenges and ethical challenges are all there. Really, I suppose for any industry, but particularly when it comes to healthcare, it's a concern to make sure that there are guardrails in place, and it sounds like that's exactly the case. And as you said, it's here to stay. As we're looking ahead, where do you see generative AI going? How do you think it will evolve? What should engineers start doing to prepare for that now, and in order to stay ahead of the curve?
Yes. So first and foremost, if you ask me honestly, the acceptance is very much important. Correct. The engineers or the organizations need to understand that it is here to stay. It is for real. And the only thing that we might be able to do right is adapt to the situation, adapt to the trend that is coming in, and flow along with it. Now, what that requires organizations to do, what that requires engineers to do, right, is there have been early adopters, there have been first step takers, first movers that we say in this space. Already the big players have gone in.
You're talking about it being here and being here to stay. So as we are here and looking ahead, where do you see generative AI going? How do you think it will evolve, and what should engineers start doing to prepare for the now, but also to stay ahead of this curve?
Yes. So I think, as I mentioned, it is here to stay. The one and the only thing that we would want the organizations and the engineers to understand is adapt with the situation. Correct. Accepting that it is here and we will have to adapt is the mantra that we'll have to go ahead with. Now, to do that, from the organization standpoint, there have been the first timers or the early adopters of this generative AI phase that we are looking at. People have started building their use cases. As I mentioned, engineering productivity has started showing results in terms of 10 to 15% average productivity gain. Business use cases, there are products being built on generative AI. There are models that are being released in the market for the usage, general usage. It has started with the flow, correct? And for the engineers, it is very important to the learning curve that is involved along with it, right? You might be coming from a traditional development or the quality assurance background or the business stakeholders, right? What we'll have to understand is, what does it take for us to move from what we are doing currently as on date to the next phase, which leverages Gen AI in our own category or in our own domain or the area that we expertise with. Correct. And that is the key. Now that will require everyone to put in some amount of effort, energy in upskilling themselves, and that is what is the ask here. Correct. People will have to sharpen upon their foundational knowledge on Gen AI. they might they have to learn a few foundational courses. There are ample of courses available online that people can leverage help from. There are prompt engineering where people might be able to understand, the engineers would understand it more relevantly, identify areas where they might be able to fit the use cases into their own day-to-day work that they are expected to do. Training, fine-tuning models, there are ample of opportunities that comes along with. It's just about the engineers to identify what fits them well, what suits them well, and gain some knowledge around it.
Yes. With and for engineers moving into this field or looking to specialize in this field, it allows it really allows engineers to be a part of saving lives, which is uh,
Yes.
a really amazing thing to be a part of course. But if they're really looking to specialize in this field, dig into that a little bit more, what are some key skills and some mindsets that they should continue focus on developing?
Correct. So as you mentioned, correct, that we are going to impact a human life somewhere, whatever we do, correct. And that's where I believe the accuracy part of generative AI is very much important, right? There possibly should be no area of negligence that we might be able to uh, accommodate here. Correct. The reason being, whatever we do, whatever comes out of those models has to be bang on, and that is where the human intervention is going to come into perspective, right? As it's always being said, generative AI is not going to take away our jobs. It's going to facilitate us to do our jobs better. Correct. So the more the engineers are able to leverage generative AI in their own work, definitely the productivity and the other part of it increases. But then at the same time, the impact that they eventually will have to the patient's life is going to be phenomenal. And that is what we'll have to focus and keep behind the back of our minds constantly. Correct. And that is what is important in the health tech space for sure.
Keval, with your experience at CitiusTech, how have you and your team been able to adapt to this world of generative AI?
Yeah. So CTS Tech has always been inclined to build a huge repository for the knowledge that gets built internally at CTS Tech with the experience that people have on the accounts and the projects that we work with our customers for. For my specific project, what we have tried doing is leverage the platforms and the opportunities that CTS Tech gives to upskill and get our hands on into this space, right? Like there are hackathons that are conducted, there are leagues that are conducted at CTS Tech, there are training programs in terms of coach and championship programs that go behind in upskilling to the generative AI space so that when we as leaders or as engineers talk to our customers, we get the context right, we speak the right words. That is what is important. And through the hackathons that are conducted at CTS Tech, the engineers who generally work with the customers on their deliverables day in day out get some time off to work on a completely new area, which is the buzzword of the industry as on date. And so what my engineers do day in, day out with their customer deliverables, they get some time off to participate in these hackathons and make some real-time exposure, get some real-time exposure to the generative AI space and make sure that they build something out of it, which is given to them as a use case, right? And upskill their knowledge. Now, through this participation, what happens is people get engaged and hooked up to this new trend in the industry, which eventually they go back and try to learn and upskill in their roadmap. Correct. That is what is important. The learning hat has to be kept on always, which through these modes of opportunities that we have at CTS Tech, people get exposure to.
That learning hat is always on. That's an excellent thing to say, and always getting the exposure and learning more and more. Keval, it's been such a pleasure talking with you today, and I really want to thank you for bringing your passion and your expertise to our conversation today.
Thank you, Arthur. Thanks, Laurel. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, see you.
The SeriousTech Engineering the Future podcast is brought to you by CitiusTech, a leader in healthcare consulting and IT services. To find out more about CitiusTech, visit citiustech.com. To listen to more interesting insights on healthcare technology and innovations, search and subscribe to CitiusTech's YouTube channel.